Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from livestream.travel and our breaking news show together with Dr. Peter Tarlow in Texas. I'm, as most of the time, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Actually, today I'm joining you from the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center in the center of Waikiki. The weather is just beautiful here. It's sunny. It's a little bit warm, but it's comfortable. And I just had a really good tasty lunch at P.F. Chang, and I'm sitting outside P.F. Chang and wanted to see how things are in College Station, Texas today.
Well, today was really a beautiful day. The weather forecast was tremendously heavy rainstorms, but instead we had beautiful blue skies, lovely white fluffy clouds in the sky, and a temperature which almost felt like spring in the 60s, which is about 14 degrees Celsius, and with a gentle wind. So it was a beautiful spring day in the middle of the summer. And it should be normally this time of year about 90 degrees. Instead, it was about 60. It got up to about almost maybe 70 by the end of the day. But in the morning when I walked, it was about 62 degrees. So springtime came just out of nowhere. It was wonderful. And the flowers were blooming. The sky was blue. It was just a type of day you'd like to put in a box and hold it.
Perfect. And College Station, I think it's kind of in the center of Texas, isn't it?
Well, you know, Texas is very big. College Station, I would say, is toward the eastern part of the center. So it's a triangle. If you make a triangle with Houston in the east, southeast, Austin in the southwest, and Dallas in the middle of the triangle, the top of the triangle, College Station will be right in the middle of that triangle, about equally inaccessible from all three major cities. So okay. I noticed I didn't say accessible, I said equally inaccessible. All three major cities. But anyway, lots has been going on here. One of an interesting news article that I got from was reading about from I-24 News was that they're working on this and hope to launch very soon these air taxis, which are going to be really wonderful. They go at over 150 miles an hour. And places, I was just corresponding with people in Mexico City, where tourism is often bottlenecked because there's so much traffic on the roads that tourists can't get from one place to the other. But if you have air taxis that will be able to take people from one museum to another, wow, instead of spending most of your time on a highway going no place, you'll be actually able to go to see many of the events. And in the larger places, the Airbus has a range of about 400 miles. And that means that you'll be able to, say in Hawaii, get from one island to the other quite easily, or in a place like Brazil, which has lots of attractions, but they're all spread out across the country. This would make life really a lot easier. And transportation is an integral part of tourism.
Now tell me what an air taxi is. Is that like something you have to go to the airport to catch it, or how do you do it?
No, it'll be landing on different buildings, and it's like a drone. It'll be pilotless. It'll be scheduled.
Oh my God!
I
don't want to be on that one of those.
Yes, it'll be kind of an interesting experience, to say the least. But it'll be feeling like you're in a first class seat on an airplane. But it'll get you to your next destination very quickly. Obviously, it will have routes. So it's just that you're not going to drive it to wherever you want to go. It will be programmed and say, take me from, you know, say the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center to Waikiki Beach, or I don't know, you know, something.
Well, that wouldn't be too far because we're right in front of it.
I was trying to think, Diamond Head. Take me to Diamond Head.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And so, but I think the real issue is how will that really change the face of tourism? And the bottom line is people are working on flying cars now. It's not going to be long. I mean, this is not stuff that's going to take place 50 years from now. We're talking many of these things will be in operation within a year or two. And it's really going to change the face of tourism. You'll be able to do so many more things without the bottlenecks, the traffic jams that right now are just really destroying cities around the world, and tourism is difficult.
But how do you see traffic jams in the sky above you in in taxis that have no drivers. I mean, would you go on it?
Well, I'd probably be a little frightened the first time, but maybe I would get used to it. You know, we do have, I think they're gonna follow probably pass. They'll probably, I'm sure someone's thinking this through, but I think it's a little bit like when, you know, in, say La Paz, Bolivia, you take funiculars. Basically, it's just form of your transportation because there's so many mountains, which are really driverless, you know, but they follow a cable. And I think these types of things, these taxis will probably file some sort of cable in the air, you know, so that they'll be, you won't be able to go every place. You'll go, it'll be set routes that will take you. I would think that's how it's going to be in the beginning. I'm making that up on some level, but that's how I'm surmising it's going to be. But I'm sure that, you know, this is going to be a really interesting type of situation. And I think in the world of tourism, the really important thing is, as you've noted, airfares are going up so much. And, you know, inflation is hurting the tourism industry now and may hurt us a lot more by the end of the summer, that we're going to have to come up with really creative ways for people to be able to afford to travel. I know here in Texas, gas is at $4.30.
Well, that's cheap.
Astronomical. It's astronomically expensive for us. And, you know, I know in Hawaii, it's even more expensive.
It's now exceeded $6 here, Peter.
Yes, and it'll be even higher in California. And I think California is a better parallel to Texas because Californians like Texans have to go long distances. In Hawaii, your distances are very short. You can't drive to another island.
Right.
But you can have to take a plane, and if jet fuel, which is cheaper than car fuel, but does go up, the price of an airplane is going to go up. And I wonder how that would even affect an island nation or an island state like Hawaii, if you can't get from one island to the other.
Yeah, and of course, Hawaii is a very typical example how it should not be, because we don't have a ferry service. Everything is reliant on air. We had the super ferry several years ago, and this was eliminated by, I call them, nothing against people who are for the environment, but these are really environmental fanatics, and pretty much supported by the only airline here in the States not to have this type of competition. So what it leaves us here is just airfare, and there's literally just one major airline. There are a few smaller planes that fly sometimes, and you can charter a plane if you have a lot of money. But we're really relying on just one airline, what dictates this market. So, and yeah,
monopoly.
It's a monopoly, and see what it does for families. We have a lot of people that have families on one island and they live on another island. So if you take your family, you have to spend like $300 a person to fly back and forth, and you have a family of 4, that's $1,200.
Yeah.
And then God forbids, if you're a tourist, you have to get a rental car and you have to get a hotel on top of it. So that could become quite pricey.
I actually call a lot of the people who take this type of environmental conceptualizations Marie Antoinettes. You know, let them eat cake, qu'ils mangent le gâteau, because they're not thinking what it's like for family. They're not thinking about how people actually live. And I'm for the environment, but I'm for doing things smartly and scientifically. Now, we know, for example, a lot of the cutting back of carbon is now causing the oceans to warm. And so what's happening is we're having now, we talked about climate change coming from the lack of too much carbon in the air. It's actually the other way around. And we're discovering a lot of the things that we did that we believed to be correct. It was kind of like COVID. We made a lot of mistakes with COVID. I'm not blaming anyone. We just didn't know. We've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to climate change. And a lot of the stuff we did is really becoming, as we studied more, really counterproductive. And it's hurting the environment, and we're hurting the earth. We're not helping the earth.
And it's as we learn as we go, of course. And
yes, but we have to be smart enough not to be stuck in it. We have to
yeah, and I think not only that, Peter, I think what is important is to have industry that claims to be environmental friendly only to generate a profit for the very same industry, just we have to be more careful and understand this. So in this case of this airline here eliminating the ferry, that is very selfish by the airline because they don't want the ferry because one ferry carries passengers from 11 aircrafts. So that's not good for them, right? And then they're cheaper too. So yes, of course they wouldn't like such a thing, but environmental, how can they say a ferry is less environmental friendly than an aircraft? So sometimes you really have to think before you just go
And a
into the
lot of this is
environmental thing.
propaganda. We had the same thing in Texas. They were going to build a rapid train between Houston, College Station, and Dallas, and then another one from Dallas to Austin, and then a third to the Triangle, Austin to Houston, and they killed it. And the reason they killed the rapid train is they said it would upset the cows. Now, I find
It was the whales. The whales were here.
yeah, I find it really hard to believe. And I bet we could move the cows a little bit. But what we really discovered was one of the local Texas airlines was afraid that if you had excuse me, if you had trains going rapidly between cities, you wouldn't need to take the airline. So the airline would make money. But of course, the train uses much less, is much more environmentally friendly. So what we did is we got rid of the environmentally friendly system, and instead we replaced it with something which was less environmentally friendly, but we have happier cows. At least that's what we're told. Well, I don't really think the cows are happier.
Well, you got a lot of space in Texas for cows, so it's not really that crowded for the cows.
And most cows cannot hear something which is a half a mile away. So if they just kept the cows half a mile from the tracks, it would have been fine. But that was the excuse that was used, and it's not. But the real issue is it's good to protect the environment. I'm not against protecting the environment by any means at all. I am against doing stupid things or things that we're told protect the environment, but in the end, kill the environment.
No, I fully agree with you, Peter. And well, it's a crazy world, and but the world is also coming together. And you had a good example today with Saudi Arabia and Israel working together on tourism. Tell me about it.
Yeah, they of course it's not yet totally publicly, but as you know, at the very straits of the Gulf of Eilat, the Gulf of Aqaba, there are two small islands, which originally were Saudi Arabian, and then were transferred to Egypt in the 1950s. And there's an agreement, but in order to create any sort of bridges or tunnels or anything else, it requires Israel's agreement for Saudi Arabia to be able to do this. That's part of the treaty. And what it's doing is the two nations are starting to come together. Today there was a interview by a major Saudi Arabian a journalist, which was put up publicly, in which he said, look, we need to work together in tourism because then we become a major tourism bloc of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. And the fact is that they're using tourism as a means to put war aside, instead put peace in front, really is very positive. And, you know, there are always going to be disagreements between people. That's all human beings have disagreements. But if we can have disagreements where we talk to each other and not shoot at each other, that will be a really major victory. And of course, the other side of that is the tourism agreement. The head diplomat of Turkey is in Israel today, and they're talking about developing new tourism between Turkey and Israel. So again, that's the Eastern Mediterranean. And if they can get Turkey, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all on the same page, wow, you have everything. You got great food, you got great hotels, you got great history, you got religious sites. They really would they could turn themselves into the world's powerhouse, at least for the Western world.
Yeah, and if you look at Turkey, for example, Turkey with Turkish Airlines has the largest network of any airline in the world. It flies to the most countries of any airline in the world. And by the way, Peter, Israel is one of them. There has been significant traffic between Israel and Turkey for many years, thanks to mostly Turkish Airlines, because Turkish Airlines has been combining this, and you can do the world. So there are sometimes tourism powerhouses, and Turkey definitely today is a tourism powerhouse. You may
Oh,
think about Turkish
and I believe
politics
it.
in different ways, but in tourism, it's a powerhouse.
And I think Istanbul Airport is the world's largest airport, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the new airport, as far as I know, it is. And there's no other airline in the world where you can fly nonstop to so many places. Like, look at gateways just into the United States alone. There are more than almost any foreign carrier from Europe. And but they also fly to destinations like Cozumel, Cancun, Mexico City, all nonstop, to Cuba. And now I understand they're starting service to Barbados. They're thinking about Jamaica, Canada, and to how many destinations. That's all from Turkey. Sometimes I wonder where this traffic comes from, but it's not only benefiting Turkey. The idea is really to benefit other countries when they have to go through Turkey. And what Turkish Airlines is doing, right, they promote stopovers in Istanbul. So that helps tourism for guests that may not even want to go to Istanbul. They may want to go to Armenia, to Israel, to Egypt, or other places, but they stop in Turkey for a few days.
Sure.
Yes, yeah.
I remember Icelandic Airlines used to do that. When I was
Exactly,
in
yeah.
college,
They still do it, Peter. They still do it.
But the cheapest
Yes.
way for a college student in the 1960s to get to Europe from the United States was through Reykjavik. And I remember it was all the flights were all college students. The airline served nothing more than codfish and brandy. I guess they figured they had anybody drunk, it would hold down the. It was hard to get a glass of water, but brandy flowed like water. But you had to land in Reykjavik. It was much cheaper, and the plane didn't leave Reykjavik until they sold enough Icelandic sweaters. So
yes, I remember I bought one of those, and they were good. I had them for like decades after that. Yeah.
And you landed in the middle of the night in Luxembourg, but I don't know how many people ended up shopping at the Reykjavik airport, because if you didn't buy enough stuff, the plane didn't leave. And it was a brilliant strategy on the part of Icelandic Airlines.
Yeah, and when that started, and the reason they flew into Luxembourg, what a really unknown, insignificant place for when it comes to major cities in Europe, because Luxembourg said, yes, we do this, and there was a special agreement. Like Germany hated Icelandic because they had minimum airfares to the US, and Iceland Air was able to undercut it. And what they did, for example, I lived in Germany at the time, they had bus service like every couple hours from Düsseldorf and from Cologne and from other cities to take you to Luxembourg airport to catch an Icelandic flight.
Yes, I used to go to Paris, and I flew into Luxembourg, and there was a bus every hour from Luxembourg to Paris. So it was much better. It was half price for me to fly to Luxembourg, especially as a college student, and take the bus than it was for me to fly directly to Paris. And you saved enough for 2 nights in a hotel.
Yeah, and it was not only Icelandic Air. There was a Caribbean Air or Air Caribbean with flights to Barbados. And then from Barbados, you could go to other places. So it was the beginning of the concept you see today in Istanbul or in Dubai, pretty much also with Emirates Airlines. And these are strategically really well-positioned regions in the world where this type of business could be brilliant also for the future.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, because of the fact that inflation is so bad right now around the world, and prices are going up so much, people are going to start looking for bargains. And if you are able to turn your country or your airport or your airline into a way to save people money, they're going to go to look, especially if you give them decent service and good customer service with a smile, they're going to look to come to you.
Yeah, and of course, the world is changing. On the other hand, non-stop flights are more and more promoted. If you look at now the new non-stop flight between Sydney and London, what was announced, I don't know when it's supposed to start, and using smaller aircrafts to connect cities non-stop. So there's a pool also against these stopovers, but I think it has advantages for different type of clienteles, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what type of clientele we have in a year or two, and how many people in the middle class are now looking for bargain airlines, because a lot of people who were traveling could afford maybe a business class or a nice trip once a year, may say, I have to pay for school for my children. I have to pay for much food costs. If you go to the supermarket, are through the roof. Gas prices are very expensive. And all of a sudden, people are going to be looking for ways to save money. And
And
so,
ironically, Peter, you know, when it comes to the example, we've been talking about Turkish Airlines or Emirates. These are top-notch airlines,
yes,
but with really low prices. So
yes.
how did they do this?
Well, I think one is that they probably, and I don't know that. I'm making this up, but one, I wonder if they're unionized or not unionized.
No, they're not unionized.
Okay,
As far as
the
I-
one,
yeah.
the one, they're able to probably have less cost per employee. Secondly, because you don't have union regulations, the employees may have be able to put more into it. I remember Southwest Airlines, the flight attendants also cleaned the plane. Now, I realize that's, you know, that would never go in a unionized airline, but the bottom line is they all work together and they were able to keep the price low. And then Southwest Airlines was able to offer prices much reduced to those of other airlines in the United States because one, they didn't have the overhead. Two, my guess is they may get a gift from their own country as far as landing fees. And that would also, landing fees are very expensive for airlines.
And they're used like a secondary airlines. If you look at Ryanair, for example, in Europe, many times they're land at airports no one else flies to. They're at probably the same distance to the cities, but they're just airports. Like in London, you have Luton, you have several other airports. In Germany, you have an airport also called Düsseldorf, what is almost 100 kilometers away. No one knows, in the middle of nowhere. And that's how they keep the cost low.
And you know what? Those are much better airports because you don't have all. When you get a Heathrow in London, it's the world's most hated airport. And you know, you go to JFK in New York, it's the same thing. You're just, it's or LAX in Los Angeles. Those are awful airports. They're pushed. There's lots of crowds. It's hard to figure things out. You running from one part to the other. I would always prefer a smaller airport where somebody smiles at you.
Yes.
I always tell my friends, you know, in Miami airport specializes in rudeness. And I think they fire you if you smile.
Well, you can come here to my part of the world and fly out of Molokai or something. Everyone knows everyone. So
Yeah,
people
I
still
like that.
smile at some
I like
airports.
the problem is I can't get from one island to the next.
Yeah.
So we're
All
back
right.
to where we began. But I think, you know, what we're getting from this is the world of tourism is changing quite a lot. Lots is going on. I think we are going to have to come to learn to live with the war in Ukraine. It's not going to be done quickly. It's will it spread to other parts of Europe? Nobody knows that. It's still very much potential. Of course, you probably saw the predictions of George Soros, who says that he thinks that we're going to have a World War III, and that
Well, let's not
large
hope that.
parts of- yeah, and most of Europe will be wiped out. Now, this is going on at Davos Airport, you know, right now going on in Switzerland, and many people are talking about this as part of the Great Reset. And the fact is, will they wipe out the middle class, and will we become a two-class society with a very small number of wealthy people and the rest of the people being serfs? If that's true, and I hope it isn't, and I pray it's not, basically that's the end of tourism.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it will be an interesting world. But what's going on in Davos now would be really interesting to see. I would love to be a fly on the wall to hear what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's a fast changing world, I guess.
And I
And
see you're
everything-
changing locations in Hawaii,
I'm taking all of you around the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center a little bit.
which is a lovely shopping center, by the way.
It's a nice shopping center, yes, and it's busy again here. So, and the shops are open again, what is also good. It looks like business is coming back.
Good. Well, then I want to wish you a wonderful afternoon, and I wish you a good evening from Texas. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, and thank you very much, Peter. And
Bye-bye.
if you wanted
Aloha.
to watch this again, just stay tuned. We're going to repeat it usually every 2 hours for 24 hours. And then you can always go to breakingnewsshow.com and listen to this broadcast and many others. And of course, if you want to have the complete selection, go to our YouTube channel. Just click on the YouTube link on any of our websites or go to youtube.com/travel news. And Peter, thank you very much. And also, you have a good night and aloha from Hawaii.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Located just 20 minutes north of Kathmandu is one of the hidden gems of Nepal, the temple at Buddha Nilkantha. Come with us and discover this magical place. Legend has it that a farmer was digging in his field one day in the 6th century, and he struck a rock. The rock began to bleed. As the farmer dug, he uncovered what would become the largest single stone statue in Nepal. Carved out of a single piece of black basalt was the statue of the reclining god Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is one of the 3 most important gods to Hindus. You can see this remarkable and beautiful carved statue today at the temple at Buddha Nilkantha. The name Buddha Nilkantha translates into Old Blue Throat, a name intimately associated with Lord Vishnu. While rarely visited by Western tourists, Hindu faithful from all over South Asia, from all over the world, regularly come to visit the temple and to celebrate festivals and worship Lord Vishnu. For people from around Buddha Nilkantha or nearby Kathmandu, visiting the temple to feed the pigeons is a frequent activity. Also, many people come here just to meet with friends, to sit and talk, reminisce, and share stories and time together. At various times throughout the year, depending on the festivals and events going on at the temple, it can become quite a busy place, with a lot of people coming, going, visiting, ringing the bells, worshiping Lord Vishnu, and celebrating at the temple at Buddha Nilkantha. just come to Buddha Nilkantha to visit the temple, plan on spending a couple of days here. There's many hotels, bed and breakfast, and homestays to fit every budget. There are restaurants right nearby the temple that feature every cuisine imaginable, from typical Nepali foods to pasta, fried chicken, even tacos, and enough espresso bars to fulfill anyone's cappuccino dreams. While you're here, go hiking at Shivapuri National Park and enjoy the tall trees and the clean, fresh air of Buddha Nilkantha.